Welcome to the beautiful bluegrass region of central Kentucky, long known as a rich breeding ground for some of the world's greatest thoroughbreds. It is here each year on the hallowed turf of Churchill Downs that long shots get a chance to become legends. It is also here on the high banks of Kentucky Speedway over the last 3 years that we have witnessed a rags to riches rise by some of NASCAR's brightest young stars. We welcome you to our live coverage of NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice from Kentucky Speedway here in Sparta, Kentucky. Yeah, we're about a half an hour south of Cincinnati, Ohio. This track has certainly been magic for young drivers trying to get to victory lane for the first time. Turn back the clock 3 years ago. A relative unknown from Southern California, an unsponsored Chevrolet, came down and realized a dream. David Gilliland went to victory lane. 1 year later, it was the Robert Yates Ford of Stephen Light, the former go-kart racer, who pulled off the upset on Father's Day to get that first win. And 1 year ago, making only his third career start, Joey Logano became the youngest winner in NASCAR Nationwide Series history at 18 years and 21 days of age. Now, earlier today, Joey Logano arrived from Michigan, where he had qualified his Cup car 24th early today. Got to be in a hurry, though. Ran to the garage area to get in his car for the first practice session, where he was the fastest car on the racetrack. And now he is standing by in the garage area with our Mike Massaro.
It was indeed an exciting evening for the entire Logano family a year ago here at Kentucky. What's it like for you to come back here knowing this was the place where you got your first nationwide victory?
It's a cool thing. I think anywhere you go with after you won is they got a lot of neat stuff. You know, you get on the front page of the program and the tickets and all that stuff. So that's it's a pretty cool thing. And you know, this is one of my favorite racetracks. You know, it's puts on good racing. So I enjoy it. My GameStop Toyota today's. It's okay. I got a cool paint scheme on it. If you didn't see that, yeah, I got a prototype on it, and it's pretty neat looking. So
I'm sure we'll show that paint scheme quite a bit during practice. How was the car?
It was good. I was a little surprised how fast we were for as tight as it was, though. I mean, we were fast. I mean, I'd been really mad if how bad it's driving to where it is. So most likely I'll get it driving good, and I'll probably go slower. So hopefully we'll get it driving better and get a little bit faster, though. I think Dave and the guys are going to work on it here and see what we can do in the second practice.
Well, you got to give Joey Logano some hustle points. He made it all the way here from Brooklyn, Michigan, as did Carl Edwards, but his teammate Kyle Busch didn't make it. Brad Coleman will be behind the wheel of the 18 car here in this practice session. Vince?
Well, Mike, Kentucky Speedway has produced a first-time winner in this series 3 years in a row, and if it's to be a fourth consecutive year, it might be this guy right here, 23-year-old Justin Allgaier. You've never run the nationwide car here, but you have run in ARCA here. Is there anything that transfers from your ARCA experience to the nationwide car?
Yeah, I definitely think so. You know, this is a really fun place to race at, and you know, at night it gets even more fun. This is a lot of grip in this place, and a lot of the drivers have come here, whether it be testing, nationwide, ARCA, trucks, so there's a lot of experience here. So for us, we're just looking to put the Verizon Wireless Dodge up front. This is the best practice we've had since we started the year, so we feel like we're really starting to come together, Chad Walter, the crew chief, and I, so we're really excited for this weekend.
Chad talks about how you really know what you want in a race car. You know the feel you're looking for. What's that feel you're looking for here at Kentucky?
I think the biggest thing here at Kentucky is just making sure that your car rolls well through the corners, but able to be in the gas a lot. You know, this is a racetrack that's very throttle sensitive. If you're not in the gas, there's somebody else going to be, and they're going to go by you. So we're working really hard to get the car to turn well, and we also know that at night it's going to get a lot more grip. So wherever we're at today at the end of practice, it's just going to get that much tighter tomorrow night for the race.
Justin Allgaier, he's the Raybestos Rookie of the Year points leader. Doc?
And Vince, this racetrack has been so good to young drivers. 6 of the 8 winners here have been 25 years of age or younger, and there are 16 drivers, including Allgaier, in the garage area who fit that bill, age 25 or younger. We welcome you inside our NASCAR Craftsman Tech Garage. Normally it's the home of Tool Time Tim Brewer telling you about his favorite Craftsman tools, but I'm Jerry Punch inside along with Rusty Wallace. Glad to have you with us. And Rusty, there are 8 1.5-mile racetracks on the NASCAR nationwide circuit. But why is this place so special to allow so many breakthrough winners?
Doc, I talked last week about the same thing at Nashville Speedway. That place is pretty easy to drive, pretty straightforward, and so is this track right here in Kentucky. A nice layout, a little bit bumpy, and the drivers really really seem to like it. But you know, one other reason I think they're so good is that a lot of those Cup guys are up there in Michigan practicing. They can't get down here to get all the full practices that they really need. And these nationwide regulars, they're in that car, getting all those laps, getting that experience. And when it comes to race time, they're dialed in, and those Cup guys are fighting a little bit.
We just showed the folks at home the last 3 years, Gilliland, Light, and Logano. Now, you've been in the garage here this morning, so many young faces. Who, in your opinion, could be the next to break through here Saturday night?
Well, there's many, but the guy I'm looking at right now is Kelly Byers. I think Byers is in good shape. He's driving that famous number 33 of Kevin Harvick. You know as well as I do, there's a lot of people won in that car, and he looked really good in practice today.
Yeah, Harvick won at Bristol early in the year. And don't forget about the 18-year-old Trevor Bayne, who's making his third ever start in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Remember, it was Logano last year who made his third start here and went to victory lane. Now, our Andy Petrie is embedded down with the 99 team. And, Andy, what's the feeling down there about Trevor Bayne?
Hey, Doc, they're feeling pretty good about everything. They got a brand new race car down here in Kentucky. They're going to let me hang out in the garage area and just kind of get under the hood and maybe take you guys in there. But, Trevor, you were out there in the first practice. This is the biggest racetrack you've been on. What's your impression so far?
Got a lot of room to work with out there. Talking to Jerry, I mean, I just got to get used to giving the car headway up off the corner. You know, it's a lot. I mean, it's really similar to Nashville getting into the corners, but you just got a ton of room to get off the corners. So just working on that, you know, and then the second practice here, we'll use the dial the car in. I feel pretty good about this place. So, I mean, I'm a lot more confident after running last weekend. So I think we got a good car here, and Jerry's making it faster for us.
Yeah, what's the biggest difference between some of the, say, the bull rings you've run in the Hooters Cup and some other short track stuff to come into a racetrack this big and running this fast?
Momentum. I mean, these cars, you know, they got restrictor plates on them now, so you just got to get used to that big arc into the corner, not using a whole lot of brake and getting to the throttle as soon as possible and driving it straight off that corner. So when I went to Nashville, I was barreling down into 3, but I was on the bottom, you know, and I'd use a lot of brake and then just try to turn it all at once and use the gas. But, you know, that's the biggest thing I've had to learn, and that's been, you know, the hardest thing to learn, but we're getting there now. So
yeah, doing a great job. And this is the guy right here that's going to have to get the car right for Trevor Bayne in this practice session. Jerry Baxter, what is the plan now? What are you going to do in this final practice session?
Well, I'm going to start him off by putting a set of tires on the thing and full tank of gas. We kind of freed the car up a little bit in the first one and want to make sure we didn't go over that edge, get him going. And then we're going to start working on some front-end geometry stuff, mess around with some Ackerman and a little bit of bump changes and go from there.
Okay, sounds good, Jerry. And now for more of what other teams might be doing, let's go to the Craftsman Tech Garage and Tim Brewer and your guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'll tell you what, this last practice session we had, a lot of people were complaining about real rough riding cars. Bouncing on a racetrack, a real rough ride, not smooth. Now, a couple things can cause that problem. Let's start right here with the shock absorber. A lot of guys are going to take these shocks and they can adjust the rebound. They can back this off, make this shock go up and down smoother. Will give a car a lot better ride. Now, Tim knows as well as I do that this sway bar, look how big this thing is, man. This baby's gigantic. And if you put this sway bar in this car and it's too big, it can make this front end ride very, very rough. If you soften this sway bar up, make it smaller, it's going to give you a little bit better ride, but it's going to let the car kind of roll over a little bit. It's a real fine balance. You don't want that to happen. Now, one quick fix a lot of these guys are going to be doing is trying to drop the air pressure in these left side tires as much as they possibly can and still get really good grip. If they get this pressures down soft, it's going to ride this really bumpy racetrack much, much better. Now, Tim, there's one more thing I think that'll probably help a lot, that right front spring right there.
Well, folks, right now we're looking at a spring that's installed, and we call this inspection height. But when you go through the corner, the spring is actually going to look just like this, which is what we call coil bind. But the key is getting the air dam sealed up against the racetrack, because the more downforce we can make, the better the car is going to run. But as far as getting through those bumps, we've got a couple of things we're going to throw at it. This welded-in bucket right here is a conventional bucket, but now we're putting solid, round, flat buckets in the car, and what we're going to do with that, we're going to put an insert in, because the standard location of this spring setting in a bucket, you can get the car to compress, but if it bottoms one of the coils out before it gets to another one, the car has a tendency to skate around. So what we do, we actually manipulate this bucket by turning it 180 degrees. Sometimes we can get all these springs to stack at the same time, get this air dam down on the ground, makes for a lot of speed and a lot of driver comfort.
Thanks, guys. Lots of different options to fight the bumps here at Kentucky and make the drivers not only fast but very comfortable in the Nationwide Series cars. Well, we'll show you every bump and bobble throughout the weekend as our NASCAR Nationwide Series coverage continues tomorrow with qualifying at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. And, of course, a race at 8 o'clock Eastern time beginning with NASCAR Countdown. How about some NHRA action tomorrow, 7 and 11:30. Qualifying final Sunday at 10 Eastern time. And, of course, NASCAR Now pre-race edition Sunday presented by 5 Hour Energy at 9 a.m. Eastern. Back with more from Kentucky in just a moment.
NASCAR Nationwide Series Practice, brought to you by AutoZone. Because do it yourself doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
Back at Kentucky Speedway, the first practice session just over about 15 minutes ago. Here's how they wound up in that session. As you saw, Joey Logano did arrive from Michigan and is at the top of the speed charts. Mike Bliss coming off with the same car he won with at Charlotte, by the way. You see Carl Edwards is there. And look at some of the young drivers. Eric Darnell is there, Justin Allgaier. And 7th overall is Kelly Byers, and he's standing by with Mike.
And after running a full schedule in 2008, Kelly Byers running only an abbreviated schedule in 2009. His second start with KHI. Considering the obstacles you've faced over the last 12 months or so, trying to make a name for yourself, prove yourself, how much of an opportunity do you look at this weekend as?
It's huge. You know, these guys, Ernie and all the guys at KHI really give me a good opportunity in a fast race car. And Copart Chevrolet's been really quick today. We had a little bit of an oil leak there in first practice, so the car was good enough where we took the time to sit it out, fix the oil leak, and save our tires and go back out here in second practice. So very, very happy with the balance of the car, and we're going to see what we got here.
And Vince, Kelly Byers trying to do exactly what he did earlier this spring at Nashville, and that's post a top 5 finish and prove just how good he is.
Well, the 16 car hasn't had many problems posting good finishes this year. 3 victories for Eddie Pardue, the crew chief, in this 16 car. 2 with Greg Biffle, 1 with Matt Kenseth. Today, it's 21-year-old Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the race car. Just your 3rd Nationwide Series start. What are your expectations for this weekend?
We definitely have to finish. We gotta get the City Financial Ford Fusion to the end of the checkered flags, and we've been struggling with that the first 2 races. So we're looking to turn it around here at Kentucky. All the City guys are working really hard, and I think we should have a good Ford Fusion for the race.
He's got a bright future ahead of him, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Doc?
Exactly, Vince, making only his 3rd start in what is going to be a very bright future for Roush Fenway Racing. And we told you this Kentucky Speedway is one of 8 mile-and-a-half racetracks. And, Rusty, it is the lowest or least banked of all those tracks. Banked only 14 degrees in the turns, 8 degrees on the front straightaway, and 4 on the backstretch. But you said it's one of the easier tracks to drive.
Yeah, it really is, Jerry. It's a real easy track to drive. The entry at turn 1 is real wide. You'll see a lot of guys stay way out against the wall and make a really late turn getting into turn 1. Now, another thing you'll see at this racetrack is not much time out of the throttle. Enter in turn 1 and exit in turn 2. You know, heard some drivers saying you got to be in the throttle, you got to keep that momentum going, and that's really characteristic of the track right here at Kentucky.
So maybe that's one of the reasons we've seen so many young drivers break through.
Well, you know, the young drivers got a lot of nerve. There's no doubt about that. They like to stay in the throttle wide open. They like to run hard, especially this cat right here, Brad Keselowski. He's been strong. He knows how to get around this place.
Getting ready to open up for practice. I was in the garage area a little while ago, right before we came on the air, and some of the young guys were yelling, "Mind that bird." And I kept looking around for a bird, and then I realized they were talking about the Kentucky Derby winner. And that's a winner that was a 50-to-1 long shot. That's what they're referring to. You can be a long shot and get it done here in the state of Kentucky.
It seems like this place is all about opportunity. This track right here, this stretch we're in right now, last week at Nashville, this week at Kentucky, next week at Milwaukee, all these nationwide regular drivers are thinking about this stretch, and they're telling their crew guys, don't screw up, man. We got 1 shot left. We got to get this thing right.
There's Eric Darnell, the 6 car, going out, and along behind him, the 88 car. Now, Darnell has had a heck of he had the 4th place finish at Darlington, followed up with a top 10 at Nashville. So in only 4 career starts, he's had 2 top 10s.
Yeah, he's doing really well. He's had a lot of practice in the truck series, which really warmed him up for this ride with Jack Roush. And he's been very impressive to watch. But I will tell you, Eric and the rest of the guys will tell you that this practice session right now is the most important one they're going to run. This is the last practice of the day, folks. This is the money practice. They've had 1 hour and 15 minutes of practice a little while ago. They made some changes. They've had about a half an hour to sit and think about what they're going to do. And these are the new setups they got in these cars right now.
It's a good thought, because remember, we will cover qualifying tomorrow live at 5 o'clock Eastern time, but the race is at 8 o'clock, a little after 8 o'clock, so this practice really will mimic what's going to happen with race setup. There's a 60 car of Carl Edwards, who's won here as a rookie back in 2005 from the pole.
Now, I think this is one key move that Carl did. He flew from Michigan over here just to get in this car to get some practice time. Kyle Busch is elected not to come here. I don't think it's a great move, but this kid's been able to pull a lot of stuff off Kyle Busch, we know. But I like it how Carl's getting over here to get prepared, get this thing driving the way he wants it. Because, man, let's face it, he's going for a championship.
We mentioned his win here back in 2005. Aside from that win, Carl has not, every other finish has been 20th or worse at this racetrack, so he struggled here.
Yeah, he has struggled of late, but at this particular racetrack, it has been one of his strongest suits. Carl will tell you that he loves Kentucky. He's won here before. He gets around this track really, really well, and this is one of his favorite tracks. So it's in your head that I've done it before, I can do it again. And that's one of the reasons he's here practicing from Michigan.
I still think the phenomenal story of 2008 was this young man here at 18 years, 21 days, third career start. Now, he won a pole at Nashville in his second start. Obviously, the much ballyhooed phenom for Joe Gibbs Racing, but he comes here on Father's Day a year ago and gets the victory.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Jerry. I mean, this guy, he's done so good. Joey Logano, a youngster. I keep calling him a youngster, but he's driving like a veteran. And I guess one of the things that really surprised me a little while ago, he flew in from Michigan and jumped right in this car, and I think about the fourth lap of the racetrack, he was the fastest car out there. That's how well prepared this car is, and that's how good it is. Now let's remember, it seems like every driver that gets in this car in the past has won. Now, Joey's doing the same thing, so he's getting the job done with good equipment. He's doing a great job behind the wheel.
He is P1 now, the top of the charts in this session as well. He was the fastest car in the first session. How does a young driver get so talented and so well developed by the age of 18? I mean, I guess, is it does some of the things they have, the video games and the simulators, is that a way they get so advanced so quickly?
You know, you might have some drivers tell you that, but I'm old school. I never had that, and I can't imagine that working the way you need to have it work. I think really what helped Joey was just
1 and 2. They hit him, and it hits pretty hard and kind of sends you up the track.
I think what really helped Joey is just getting a lot of seat time. He giving good feedback, like he just did right there. He said it's bottoming out, and I would change this. Mike, I tell you, Joey has been very good since he's unloaded. What's he looking like to you right now?
He looks real good, and you guys were talking about how you develop a young driver like Joey Logano. Well, this race a year ago, for obvious reasons, was a turning point for him in his career, but not just because he went to victory lane, but because of the way his practice sessions went in this particular weekend. Now, he was terrible here a year ago, so much in fact that he almost had a mental breakdown, Dave Rogers told me, after practice. He was so upset. Rogers just told him, look, you need to trust us. Well, Logano went back to the transporter, relaxed a little bit, put his trust in the engineers. They dialed that race car in so well that after that race, Logano has been a different driver, according to Dave Rogers. He says he now trusts the engineers much more than he ever has before, and he's really understood that, look, it's their job to dial it in, his job to drive it.
What a great story, Mike. And indeed, yeah, I guess it is all about trust. And anything you do in business and a marriage and racing, you got to be able to trust those engineers and crew chiefs. In fact, we talked to Joey Logano about the win a year ago. It might have looked easy, but it was a struggle all night long.
I wasn't expecting to win my third race out there, and you know, looking back at it, you know, we went and practiced and we stunk. It was horrible. I told Dave, I said, we're junk. I don't even know why we're here. I totally just went off. I'm like, we're no good. And they changed everything. I've never seen someone change so much stuff on a race car. We put it on the pole and win the race. Like, wow, that's awesome.
That was awesome, and he became the third first-time winner at this racetrack in 3 consecutive years. Joey Logano did it from the pole, though. Although he didn't lead the most laps, his teammate Kyle Busch led the most laps, but Kyle spun late, and Joey Logano was there to capture the victory. Now trying to make it 2 in a row. .32 car on the racetrack. That is Bernie Lamar.
I talked to Bernie earlier, Doc. He was really excited to get back in this car. He's been out for a couple weeks, and I noticed right off the bat in that first practice session, he shot up to P2, position 2, looked real strong, and I tell you, every time I've seen him in this 32 with Braun Racing, he looked like a totally different driver. I remember when we came over with Kevin Harvick, when Kevin first started that team, this guy struggled so much that Kevin fired him. I mean, they just changed drivers, and now Bernie's looking like a veteran out there in this thing.
Yeah, Bernie has driven this car 6 times, and Brian Vickers has been in it 7 times. They sort of split this ride throughout the 2009 season. By the way, Brian Vickers, the pole sitter for the NASCAR Sprint Cup event at Michigan on Sunday. So he's focusing on the Cup car, and Bernie focusing right now on the Nationwide car. Now, last week, the driver of this car was a 10th place finisher at Nashville. We're talking about the guy who's driving it right now. This is Brad Coleman subbing for Kyle Busch.
Well, it's a pretty good move. I mean, if Kyle's not going to be here to get in this car, somebody needs to do it. And Brad did a good job in this car last weekend. It's got a good feel for it. I mean, a sister car to this last week in the 20 car. So it just needs to be shook down a little bit. But again, I'm so amazed how close these cars are all the time. Every time they unload, they're so close.
You know, I got to ask you, Rusty, how comfortable would you be to have someone else get in your car and set it up for you, and you just climb in it, maybe for qualifying or maybe just for the race, or back in the day?
I wouldn't be comfortable at all. I mean, maybe to shake it down so make sure no vibrations, the oil's not leaking, everything's cool like that. I mean, I really wish Kyle was here driving his own car. Vince, I'll tell you what, why didn't Kyle show up here?
Well, Kyle Busch is on the spotter stand tonight for the ARCA race up in Michigan. Brian Eichler running the ARCA race, and Eichler also runs the 51 truck when Kyle's not available. So even though Kyle's not here, it's not like he's taking the night off and putting his feet up. He's at the racetrack helping another driver that he has a close relationship to. And Rusty, I think it goes back to a little bit of the story that Mike Massaro was talking about with Joey Logano and the 20 team. This is, of course, part of that Gibbs team, and Kyle Busch has a trusting relationship and an understanding with Jason Radcliffe. He trusts that Radcliffe is going to have the car ready for him. Brad Coleman is a guy that can get in the car. He's raced enough that he's not going to be out there doing something stupid. So I think that trust factor plays into the 18 car as well.
Well, that's a pretty good explanation. I'm trying to agree with you, but I tell you, that seat time's something else. And if you're going for a championship, I still like to be in that car. But this guy's been amazing. There's no doubt about that, Doc.
Look at the tail of the tape. The reason you can put Brad Coleman in the car, they're about the same size in terms of height. A little difference in weight there, but the seat does fit Brad Coleman, trying to get the car dialed in for Kyle Busch. Coleman, by the way, who finished second here in 2007 to Stephen Light. Back in a moment. We invite you to join us tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, for live flag-to-flag coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. Remember, there have been 8 different winners in the 8 races here at Kentucky Speedway, including 3 first-time winners the last 3 years. Who will be the next blue chipper to break through here in the Bluegrass State? Back in the garage area, you see those little things on the bottom of the front part of the air dam there. Those are called wear indicators. And if you want to know what they do, well, we're going to explain it for you if we come back inside the NASCAR Craftsman Tech Garage. Here's Tim Brewer.
Those wear indicators are really important, Doc, because the reason being, it makes downforce. What we actually do is come in here and put the plastic indicators below the line on the air dam. And what we actually do is constantly measure from the ground, and we actually measure how much it's worn off. That enables us to come back, take a measurement, and actually push the air dam down 1/4 of an inch. By lowering it 1/4 of an inch, gives us about 20-25 more pounds of downforce on the nose of the car, and that's what you really need to get around this racetrack quick.
Tim, thank you very much. You always hear Rusty talking about you got to get that nose down, and that is so critical as far as getting the car to handle.
Yeah, you got to get it right on the ground. You can see these wear indicators here in the front of the 29 car. They're very flush right now. So these guys have got this air dam on the ground as much as they can. And if those indicators are hanging down, hey, man, you're just losing downforce. You're giving some speed up. So you see these guys all week long getting these noses as low as they possibly can.
Here's Kelly Byers, and now he has moved to 6th on the speed charts. And you heard the interview earlier, a great opportunity from Kevin and Delana Harvey to give Kelly Byers an opportunity. And he is one of those drivers eligible for a special bonus this weekend. Kelly finishing 4th, driving for Kevin Harvick Incorporated at Nashville back in April.
Tell you what, I talked to Kevin yesterday. Ooh, got a little loose right there. You see that? Drivers are complaining about the track being real bumpy, and it looks like it hit a bump and turned the car loose. But going back to Kevin, I talked to him yesterday, and I tell you what, I'm just amazed how well organized Kevin's team is when it comes to the Nationwide Series. His cars are always fast, and he really has a lot of high hopes for Kelly Byers driving this thing this week. He feels good about a win.
Let's get more on the 33 car from Mike.
Well, Doc, if you've sat out from a sport for quite some time, it's rather natural to be a little bit rusty, and that was the case, really, for Kelly Byers in his first stint with KHI. I spoke with crew chief Ernie Cope this morning about their run at Nashville earlier this year, I should say, and he told me that in that first practice, he wasn't sure how things were going to go. Kelly Byers, he said, was a little bit timid during that first practice, so much, in fact, he had a radio to him saying, hey, look, we're about a second off the field. The response from Byers was, yeah, I know, it's my fault. I'll make up for it. He did. He's done it. He's got off to a real good start here today, guys.
Well, he's knocked the timidness off him. There's no doubt about that. He feels comfortable with this team. He's given really good feedback, and that's what it's going to take to get this thing handled. These guys got about 45 minutes left to go, Jerry, so they got to make it. They got to really tune in right now and get these cars running fast, because this is the last practice.
Here's a 12 car, Justin Allgaier. Remember, this is a 1.5 mile racetrack. He has run very well on the 1.5 mile tracks. Remember when he came and ran Charlotte at the end of last year in October, how impressive he was in the Penske car? He said the 1.5 mile tracks are our best racetracks right now, considering where he is in his learning curve.
And that's a good point. And I think because of that, that's the reason Roger Penske hired this kid. He gives good feedback, and he really runs good in this car. Now, remember, earlier he told us that he came here in an ARCA car, had good success. And so I don't care if you're an ARCA car, an ASA car, or whatever. If you got some time around this track, get some wheel time, it's going to help you. And right now, it's showing up for him.
You can't see the bumps too much there, but we talked to Justin Allgaier about this track and how rough it really is.
What is rough? It's a real rough track.
Kentucky's a place where you really feel like you can carry good corner speed, and it is a little bit rough, and I think that throws a couple people off in the fact that it makes the cars a little bit uncomfortable. But when you're out there and you're running around, for me, it's always been I could feel the car a lot better going over the bumps, and I think that's just what's made me like the racetrack so much.
Now, where are the bumps? I know you talked about how you drive this thing almost wide open in the turn one, and then you have to hang on for the ripples. Where is it the worst?
I can tell you, honestly, it's rough all around the track. The track probably needs to be paved again. It's still got grip, and it's real fast. Still chattering up front, so he's got to get the front grip better yet. He's working on that. But back to your question, it's just bumpy, and they got to deal with it until the track gets repaved. It's been ground a lot. You can see those spots right there in front of Justin's car. Big grinding machines that come over and ground on it. But this track's had a lot of time on it, man. These guys test here all the time until this year when NASCAR banned the testing.
Well, you think it may be rough on some of the veterans. How about some of the younger drivers? You got Allgaier, who's been here at an ARCA car. How about Trevor Bayne, the 18-year-old, making only his third ever start in the NASCAR Nationwide Series? Let's check on their progress. There's the 99 car as we head down to Andy Petrie.
Yeah, guys, the 99 car went out for that first run and were very loose in their race. Yeah, they did put a new set of tires on. It's more like starting the race with new tires and just too loose on new tires. So they're going to come in here, or they did come in, and they put a rubber in the left rear and also lowered the track bar. Went back out. I'm watching the lap times. It looks like it's a lot better now. So at least they got a little better starting point. We'll see what they do next. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Andy. Trevor Bayne, obviously, we talked about how impressive he was at Nashville last weekend, and he had never seen the Nashville Super Speedway. In fact, this whole deal came together like 8 days before he was going to Nashville. Gary Bechtel, who was so impressed with Trevor, met him in Daytona, said, you know, I know your deal fell through with DEI. I want to try to put together a ride for you. And this is the second of 8 races for Trevor Bayne in the Michael Waltrip racing car. He sat on the outside of the front row at Nashville last week, and although he struggled a little bit with getting caught in the 5-car accident, impressed a lot of people. There he is in the second practice session, final session of the night. Back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Motor Speedway. Kentucky Speedway here. Final practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. It is still Joey Logano atop the speed charts. Michael Annett, the rookie, is second. Edwards, Darnell, and Bliss in the top 5. Now, the Nationwide Insurance Dash for Cash is a first-of-its-kind bonus program for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. It's a $150,000 program that pays a $25,000 bonus at 4 different racetracks. Nashville back in April, here this weekend at Kentucky, Iowa, and Memphis. So the winner, if you're eligible, you get a $25,000 bonus. And at the end of the year, you get a $50,000 check if you're atop the points. And there are the points right now. They're cumulative over the 4 races. And to be eligible, by the way, you can be any NASCAR Nationwide Series regular driver, part-time or full-time, or a double-duty driver like Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards if you run full-time also in the Nationwide Series.
Well, I can tell you one thing about a driver. Drivers love money. So they're going to be driving really hard trying to get that cash, and that's extra cash they didn't anticipate. So they're going to go get it, that's for sure.
And here's another added incentive this weekend, the $25,000 that was available in Nashville. Joey Logano won the race. He wasn't eligible. He's not running full-time in the Nationwide Series, so it rolls over. Now it's $50,000 of bonus for an eligible driver on top of the lion's share of the purse here. The purse almost $1.5 million. So that's going to be a very nice payday for a driver here if you're eligible to get both the winner's share and that Nationwide dash for cash.
Yeah, this car right here, Michael McDowell, this is a car I looked at last weekend at Nashville. The body on this car is probably one of the nicest looking cars I've seen in a long time, and the car's been handling real well for him. Right now he's 14th. He feels pretty confident in the car. And remember, these guys have got to do their qualifying runs yet. You're going to see these times really jump up.
This is the JTG Daugherty Toyota Camry. I talked to them in the garage here a little while ago. They said this is the exact same car they qualified third with last week at Nashville and finished 8th. They were the highest finishing rookie, 4th time this year. They took the car home, buffed it down, repainted it, and brought it back to Kentucky here this weekend.
Jerry, that's very important. A lot of people say, how many cars you got in the fleet? I said, well, my shop, I got 21. But if a driver gets out there and runs and loves that car, I mean, he'll talk to those crew guys and clean it up and bringing it right back because he feels comfortable. Vince, what you got going on with that 47?
Well, you mentioned he's top 15 in practice. They've been having a little bit of an issue with the car bottoming out. He said it feels like it's hitting the right front spring, but he's still able to hustle it into the corner. So he took a round out of the right front, put a pound of air pressure in the left rear tire. So we'll see if that helps it out a little bit. But top 15 so far, and they're working to get a little bit better.
Jerry, he's talking about coil bind there. Do you hear that? What Vince was saying, he's bottoming out the right front spring, and when those guys feel that, they get a really rough ride. So it looks like he's going to try to take a round out, ease how hard it hits the spring, but he's got to make it up somewhere. So he's going back to the left rear and put some air in it to make it tight, kind of rebalance the car again.
Let's update the 99 car, Trevor Bayne, who right now sits 15th on the speed charts in this final session. Andy.
Yeah, down here with the 99 team, and they're working on this front end geometry. They're going to change the Ackerman, which is how these front tires steer in relationship to each other, trying to get the most grip out of the front tires. They're going to change this slug right here to try to do that. It's in the steering arm. It's something they're going to try to do to make this car run faster. We can't really show you because they've already changed it, but Brewer, he can show us in the Craftsman Tech Garage just how these things do affect the steering. Tim?
Thanks, Andy. Folks, these are what we call slugs. Now, what we can actually do when you go down to the steering arm, what we're looking at changing is the tie rod location in the steering arm itself. How we actually do that, this is one that sets in the center. We call it a zero slug. But this slug right here, just by inserting this, we can manipulate the steering arm location all the way forward or all the way back. The reason we do that, we set the car where the tires will turn the same rate of when we're going down in the corner. But if we want to slow down one tire or speed up another tire, all we have to do is change the difference from the center ball joint to that tie rod end, and we can speed the tire up or we can slow it down. And it's driver preference, utilizing that tire, how he wants that car to steer down in the corner. That's the reason we changed the Ackerman.
My, how times have changed. You know, in the old days, getting slugged in the garage area had a totally different meaning.
Tell you what, Doc, I'm hearing more and more about this every single week. I mean, you'll hear guys say, well, I've got my slug, you know, shorter on the right front, making that right front speed up and turn faster than the left front. You see a lot of them doing that.
Here's the 62 car. That is Brendan Gaughan, and he is second in the Rebecca's Rookie of the Year point standings. Obviously, a lot of news this week on this team after the crew chief, Brian Berry, suspended indefinitely by NASCAR following what NASCAR deemed a violation of Section 12.1 of the rule book, actions detrimental to stock car racing. And Rusty, I know as a team owner now, car owner, tough week for you.
That was a tough week for us. I mean, you know, there's nothing we would ever do in our race team as far as using racial slurs. But, you know, Brian's out right now. And because of that, you see the guy right there, Wes Ward, he's in a white shirt. And the fella right to the front of him, that's Shane Huffman. He's the crew chief with the headset on, the blue headset touching his head right now. So we brought this alternate team in to help, and it looks like it's working pretty good. But I believe in Brian. I don't believe he said that. and we'll just have to see what happens. But, you know, he's taken the punishment, and we'll get him back quickly, hopefully.
We do need to remind people, though, you did get a phone call today from Harry Davis, the father of Mark Davis, and you guys had a long chat. What was that about?
It was a great chat. I was really happy to get that phone call. Harry called me up and said, Rusty, look, I don't know what happened. I didn't see it, but I can tell you one thing. We really like Brian. I want to get this guy back in your shop or in the back of the track as fast as I possibly can. He said, I apologize. And I said, I apologize. Let's just move on and get away with it. But, you know, Harry's a racer. He doesn't want to get stuck with all these words and get camped out and all this media going on right now about this. He wants to get back at the racetrack. And you know what, Doc? His kid, Mark Davis, is a pretty good little driver. I think he's going to get better and better. And I think we'll read and hear more about him as the years go on.
So if you're not familiar with what happened, we'll show you what produced all the anger on pit road and in the garage area at Nashville last weekend as Brendan Gaughan was trying to come down for the final pit stop.
Find me that dumb wannabe college graduate. Do not let him leave this racetrack at all. I'm fine. I'm fine. No, I'm talking about the kid. He's not leaving this track till he sees me.
Apparently you get a better education at Georgetown than Howard University. I'm full of all one-liners. I got nothing really good to say. I don't know if his crew chief's dumb, he's dumb, or his spotter's dumb, but in the middle of a race, you end up turning left while people are coming down pit road for green flag pit stops is asinine. I mean, maybe he needs to look that word up. I don't know.
All right.
Brendan Gaughan very upset last week, and now he has has discussed what he said and said it was not meant to be any kind of a racial slur at all. He said he went to Georgetown University and played for the legendary John Thompson. Allen Iverson was his roommate when they were traveling on the road, and Rusty, just a difficult situation for both teams involved.
It really was, Doc. It's just a racing accident. It's a perfect storm. I mean, Brendan was coming into pit for a normal pit stop. He had no idea that Mark was going to hang a left and go in the garage area, but he was. Nobody's at fault. It's just a bad racing deal.
By the way, Mark Davis is not here in the garage area this weekend, did not have sponsorship, so hopefully he'll be able to come back and continue his career in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. We are covering final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide cars at Kentucky Speedway. Back with more in just a moment. Lots of motorsports coming your way throughout the weekend. Qualifying from here at Kentucky Speedway tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and then our live flag-to-flag coverage of the race at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. Of course, NHRA action coming your way tomorrow at 7 and 11:30 Eastern Time, qualifying and finals Sunday at 10 Eastern Time on ESPN2. And how about NASCAR Now, presented by 5 Hour Energy, Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, setting the stage for the NASCAR Sprint Cup event up in the Irish Hills of Michigan. Here's the 15, and we talked about what an impressive rookie class we have this year in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Michael Annett is a 22-year-old driver from Des Moines, Iowa, former professional hockey player with the Waterloo Blackhawks. And right now, folks, this young man is second fastest on the speed chart.
Doc, this really doesn't surprise me. I was talking to Michael, believe it or not, at Darlington. I don't think I've ever met a driver that's so focused and is paying so much attention. He's a good little driver, and he is really, if there's such a thing as over-focusing sometime, it could be Michael, because he just really wants to make this car run well. Good short-track racer, won some championships. And this is the car that Mike Wallace drove last year, the number 7 car for Germain Racing. He's doing a really good job in this thing.
Yeah, Michael's dad, Harold, a longtime car owner for Sammy Swindell in the World of Outlaws. So they've had a long history of owning race cars, just trying to get their feet on the ground here in this series. Vince?
Yeah, and this car was 3rd last year. As Rusty mentioned, his brother Mike was the driver in this car. And Michael Annett, even though he is a rookie here in the Nationwide Series, he has raced the trucks here before. So there's some confidence and some familiarity with this racetrack, and also the confidence that he knew this car ran well here a year ago. And this team's also in a little bit of a transition because they recently changed crew chiefs. They went from Bruce Cook to Mike Hillman. Hillman's second week with the team. They ran a lot of laps in that first practice session, and it's really paying off for them. They're learning as they're going along with Annett in the seat, and now Hillman as the crew chief for the second week. And some good things are happening for this team. They've not had a top 10 yet this season, but he's had some moments during the course of the year that have been brighter than his results would indicate.
Vince, his best finish 11th at Texas, just barely missing the top 10. And yes, that was a 1.5 mile racetrack, although banked a little more. We are on a 1.5 mile racetrack here at Kentucky, and you can't say enough about Mike Hillman, the veteran crew chief, and what a difference he is making now for Michael Annett. Now we see how the cars are on the scales there. The crews bring them back in, and they will weigh all 4 tires and wheels. And we've also talked about a lot of these cars bottoming out here on the racetrack. And let's go back inside our Craftsman Tech Garage, Rusty Wallace. So how do you adjust for these cars bottoming out, and as far as changing weight around?
Doc, that's a good question. There's a couple of things going on right now. Let's remember, we got about 25 minutes left in practice right here, the way I'm looking at it. And they've talked a little while ago about these cars bottoming out the front end. Well, one thing it can help, this lead, actually this is tungsten. This stuff is heavy, man. I mean, I can barely lift it up. It's about 60 pounds. See this opening right here? They can take this tungsten and slide it farther back in the car, and it's going to make the front of the car just a little bit lighter, which is going to let the car ride a little bit smoother on the racetrack. Now look, when I was a driver, I wanted to have this stuff as far back in the car as I could possibly stand. If I get it too far back, the back of the car is going to get real loose. And if I get it too far forward, the car is going to push. And remember, as this fuel burns off in the back, we want that baby heavy in the back. My buddy Tim Brewer, hey, when I was racing with this cat, you know where that lead was at? It was in the truck, because he cheated just a little bit.
Rusty, I wouldn't do nothing like
bro,
that.
come on,
I just found out, you know, my race car didn't like that stuff. The tow truck liked it a lot better.
Well, we know if the lighter the car is, a faster run, that's for sure. You were pretty good at that, man.
Rusty, you wouldn't give me up on national TV, would you?
Well, you're retired now. I am too. We can sell it stuff.
It's called self-defense. I had to get them before they got me. That was my way of thinking.
Hey, you know one thing, though. This tungsten does a lot, man. It can make these cars handle way different.
I tell you what, you can change all the characteristics.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot. And by the way, the reason these guys are back in the garage area, this practice session will go all the way to 8 o'clock Eastern time. So they do have a little bit of time left to be able to move the lead, as Rusty and Tim were showing you, to be able to get these cars to stop bottoming out and bouncing around. Now, here is Mike Bliss. This is the car, by the way, that he won with at Lowe's Motor Speedway, albeit a rain-shortened race. He still got to go to victory lane and got the W.
Well, you know, he did get the victory there, and a lot of people say, oh, maybe he got lucky because of the rain.
A little bit tight again.
Starting to get a little tight again. He said he's going to have to make some more adjustments. But what I started to say, Jerry, this car ran great at Charlotte throughout the night. That's the reason they brought it back here, because it's a really good car.
He has been Mr. Consistency. Actually, 6 top 10 finishes the last 9 races. Of course, the win at Charlotte. 105 laps led this season, and he just moved after that 4th place finish at Nashville to 6th in the point standing. So Mike Bliss having a very good year for this James Finch organization. It's all about being consistent and getting it done. And Mike Bliss, they really turned their season around. You see that win at Charlotte, a top 15 at Dover, and a top 5 last Saturday night in Nashville, Tennessee. The Bluegrass State of Kentucky, home to the most hallowed ground in all of thoroughbred racing, Churchill Downs, which annually hosts the Kentucky Derby. How many years have we seen hopefuls, long shots become legends? It happened again this year with Mind That Bird, a 50-to-1 long shot becoming a legend in thoroughbred racing. And we have seen long shots become stock car legends of sort here the last 3 years. First-time winners in this series with David Gilliland in 2006, Stephen Light in 07, and Joey Logano a year ago. Now, some of the news coming down involves horsepower of sorts this week. And Rusty Wallace, it's from General Motors. Obviously, GM right now in the throes of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection reorganization. And word is coming down that the GM folks are going to reduce their factory support to Nationwide and the Camping World Truck Series teams.
Yeah, Jerry, I'm hearing that, and I hate to hear that, but I mean, a lot of people knew this was coming. They knew they were going to start cutting somewhere, and they went to the Truck Series and the Nationwide Series, and from what I hear, they're going to take some of the Cup cars, some of their product support away from them also.
And there's a whole litany of different styles of support. Some teams get everything from cash to drivers and owners and cars given to them. Others just get product. They get parts and pieces and wind tunnel time.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we're all learning a lot of things right now as we're watching Steve Wallace go around the track. And it looks like he's got a good-looking car too. But you know, a lot of guys get money. Some of them just get product support. A lot of them get free cars, personal cars to drive for their teams and everybody like that. You know, sheet metal. 7-post time. It's a whole litany of things that everybody's trying that General Motors has allocated the different teams in different levels. Not everybody gets the same thing.
Now let's allay some of the fears here for the race fans that are watching right now. They say, okay, what does that mean to my race car? If I'm a Kevin Harvick fan or a Rusty Wallace fan or a Dale Earnhardt Jr. racing team fan, what does it mean to me be able to watch that car run nationwide races now on Saturday?
Well, Doc, it means the same thing to a lot of people. Something's got to give. I mean, there's only so much money in the pot to be able to run these cars, and they got to run fast. So if we were getting wind tunnel time free, and we were getting 7-post time free, now we got to pay for it. So that's taken away from the budget. So how do you make it up? You're going to have to go in now and cut salaries, and the employees hate that. But if you're going to be competitive and stay on the track, man, you just got to do it. And that's what's happened with General Motors pulling the support.
All right, but these cars will still be on the racetrack each week. In fact, a lot of owners like Kevin and Delana Harvick have been planning ahead for something like this during the reorganization for General Motors. There's the 33 car on the racetrack, Kelly Byers, and behind him is the 99 car of Trevor Bayne, and they have made adjustments. And Andy Petrie, they've moved up now from 15th to 12th on the speed charts.
Yeah, that last change they made with that Ackerman was definitely a positive change. But they still have just a little problem through the center of the corner. Some of it has to do with the bumps. There's a lot of rough places on this racetrack to deal with. And some of it is just trying to get the car to cut a little better. So what they did is they raised the track bar a little bit, left the spring in it, and now they're going to come in and probably make at least one, maybe two practice qualifying runs. Doc?
Andy, one thing I got to ask you, I mean, the temperature has got to be cooling down out there, and a lot of people always talk about how this track has changed, and is the crew down there talking about everything changing a little bit because of the temperature right now?
Well, yeah, Rusty, they are really anticipating that the track will get a lot cooler. Obviously, when they run tomorrow, it's going to be cool in the race. They have to qualify about 5 o'clock. So, yeah, they are talking about that, and they are making plans for that and keeping their car adjustable so they can adjust for that as the race goes on.
Andy, you're talking about these guys going back out there for these mock qualifying runs. They do get a bit of a break because although these teams are limited with tires, a young driver, I think, gets a little extra help.
Yeah, with Trevor Bayne, especially this team, the 99 team, they have an extra set of tires. NASCAR does that for the rookie drivers so they can get more track time, more laps on the racetrack, which just helps these rookies. So they use that to their advantage, and they can make an extra qualifying run being as they have another set of tires.
Andy, what's one of the biggest complaints you're hearing down the garage area from most of the competitors out there?
Well, the biggest complaint I'm hearing, Rusty, is about the bumps. I mean, this track is very rough, and it is matured over the years, and you start getting a little bit of that, of the bumps and things to deal with, and they have to play with the shocks, play with the way they sit on top of these springs. They're coil binding, which makes the cars very harsh. I heard some comments earlier where guys were saying, it's bottoming out getting in the turns. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean bottoming on the track. It's bottoming on the springs. So that makes it real harsh for the drivers, and sometimes it's hard to deal with.
Andy, I apologize. I told the fans a little while ago, it looks like our practice was going to be over in about 15 minutes. That would have put it at 7:45. But it is going to 8 o'clock. Right now, we've got about 30 minutes left in practice. Is everybody getting ready to do some qualifying runs right now? See how fast these things are really run?
Yeah, they are, Rusty, and like you say, they got 30 minutes. This is a fairly long happy hour session, and a lot of teams don't have a lot of tires, so they take their time. You see they're putting gas in these cars. They're cooling them down. They'll take their time, and they have to make some changes. NASCAR allows you, even though they impound the cars after qualifying, they still allow you to make changes to the car. So they're making these changes now. They're tightening their cars up so they can put that tape on the grill, put those sticker tires on, and fill them up with fuel and try to get that fast lap.
Thank you, Andy. We'll update what's going on with the 99 a little later on here. This is the 11 car of Scott Lagasse Jr. His best qualifying effort came 1 week ago in Nashville. He qualified 5th and finished 11th there. We keep talking about this impressive rookie crop, and a lot of people have been very impressed, and I'm one of them with Scott Lagasse Jr.
No, he's done really well. I mean, I watched him from last year to this year, the improvements that he's made, Jerry, and it's been mind-boggling. It's been so good. But I really think this alliance that he's put together with Joe Gibbs Racing, just a little bit of it's really helped. You notice that's a Toyota, and that thing always seems like it's fast every week.
Here's a car that was very fast at the end of last week's race in Nashville. He probably was the fastest car on the racetrack. Brad Keselowski didn't have enough laps to get it done. Justin Allgaier's Dodge getting tuned up for what should be the final minutes of this final practice. We'll come back to Kentucky in a moment. We've got some proven winners on the racetrack here at Kentucky Speedway, and we also have some proven winners inside the NASCAR Craftsman Tech Garage. There's our Tech Garage. with former championship crew chief Tim Brewer and championship driver Rusty Wallace. Now, our Ask the Analyst question comes from Dave in Los Angeles, California. How do you make the change from practice setup to qualifying setup to race setup? And let's start with Tim Brewer. And Tim, a lot of adjustments there, but these are impound races, so you got to adjust for qualifying and hope it's going to work, I guess, for the race itself.
Jerry, what we're going to do is actually set our car up for a race condition. But when we have to crutch it, we can go in and put tape on the nose of the car because we know we can remove it. But what the tape's going to do is put us more down pressure on here because we're going to drive that car off in the middle of the corner like you never drive anything else. But what we're going to do to compensate for that, we're going to actually increase the air pressure in the right front tire. That right front air pressure, it's going to hold the car up and let the guy drive the car down in the corner. That's some of the changes. We can take the air pressure out of the tire. We can also remove the tape to get back to a good race setup.
Now, Tim, we're talking about racing, we're talking about qualifying, and those are two things you just said for qualifying. Tape that baby up, move the air pressures around a little bit, but also NASCAR lets you adjust the weight jacking bolts. Now, if you so desire, you can take this left front, bring it up one round. You can go over to the right front and go down one round. Let's come on back here. We can come back here to this left rear jack bolt. We can screw it down 1.5 rounds, go over to the right rear, come up 1.5 rounds. That's 4 adjustments we made now in these jack bolts. Got one more left. We can go to that track bar and bottom that baby out, because when Tim puts that tape on the front of that car, it makes that thing really loose, and we got to offset that somehow by tightening that car up, and we're going to do that by what I just said with these jack bolts. Now, Tim, we got one more thing up there, the shock absorbers.
Tell you what, Rusty, we can come up here with the shock absorbers. Folks, when we actually manipulate the valving here, there's a rod that runs upside this shock right here. What we do when we manipulate the valve, we actually open or close the oil flow. And anytime you change the oil flow, you change the handling characteristics of the shock absorber, and NASCAR allows us to manipulate the shocks.
Guys, a lot of adjustments to get these cars ready to go out for a mock qualifying run. Now, here comes the 99 car of Trevor Bayne down pit road. And Andy Petrie, I understand they have dialed this car in for a practice qualifying run. What are they going to do?
Yeah, you guys must have been listening to their radio, because you just about explained everything they did to this car. Like you said, they're going to go out there and make this qualifying run. They put stickers on there, which is new tires. They're going to tape the front end up almost all the way up. And they did that. They changed those shocks, Tim. They clicked the shocks and changed the rebound a little bit to help the car with a better balance when they do put that tape on there and those new tires and full of fuel. They also went a long way on that track bar. I mean, when I asked Jerry Baxter, I said, how far did you go on it? He said, a lot. So they're unlimited on how much they can do that. They put the wedge in the car that NASCAR allows them to take back out after they impound the cars. But, man, that's a lot of changes to get this car balanced, isn't it, Rusty?
I'll tell you what, it is a lot of changes, Andy. And as you well know, now he's going to go out and see if it works. Make a qualifying run, and a couple things can happen. Either the car is going to be loose, or it's going to be tight, or it's going to be just right. And because of that, Andy, he's going to, what do you think the biggest thing you'd change? Would it be air pressure, wedge, or a little bit of both, or what would you do?
Well, if they go out there and let's say they're loose on this run, they're limited on what they can change. I mean, as far as keeping the car good for the race, they can actually go to the front and change some wedge. They don't like to do that because it changes so much when you turn one of those front jack bolts. But they could do that, and they still have some air pressure things that they can try. But you know what? Jerry Baxter's pretty smart. I'm sure he's got all his calculations right, and that baby's going to be fast and good.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. We know that 99 car is good, and also it's this number 60 car you're looking at right now, Carl Edwards. Jerry, right now he's third quick.
Remember, Carl Edwards has not won in 2009. He's still winless on the season. A year ago, he had to go all the way to Milwaukee, which is next week, by the way, in race number 17 to get his first win. And, boy, then he just started coming to life. They had won 7 races down the stretch and finished just 21 points shy of Clint Boyer. So don't count Carl out. 4 second-place finishes, and right now only 65 points back of Kyle Busch.
Well, he's eating Kyle Busch up. He's right there on his bumper with the points. There's no doubt about that one. You know, the thing I like so much, like I told you earlier in the show about Carl, he's here practicing this car. He was able to make it here instead of having a backup driver in the car. He's going to do a qualifying run to make sure it's right, and when he gets here tomorrow, he's just going to get in that baby and drive.
Carl Edwards won here as a rookie back in 2005, set on the pole and led 150 of 200 laps. But he has struggled at this racetrack since then. Could Saturday night be different for cousin Carl? Tons of motorsports coming your way throughout the weekend. We invite you to join us tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern time, for qualifying for the NASCAR Nationwide Series and live flag-to-flag coverage, 8 o'clock Eastern time, beginning with NASCAR Countdown, Alan Bestwick and Brad Doherty. NHRA qualifying tomorrow, 7 and 11:30. Final Sunday at 10 Eastern time on ESPN2. And, of course, NASCAR Now, presented by 5 Hour Energy, Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN2, setting the stage for the NASCAR Sprint Cup event that will be taking place up in the Irish Hills of Michigan. Down in the 38 pit, Mike, they're cooling something down.
Yeah, you know, it's this time during the last practice when you see teams just carting out bags and bags and bags of ice. Well, it's not because they're having a tailgate party. It's because they want to cool down the system, simulate what they're going to experience once they do actually do out for qualifying. This is a cool down unit right here. You can see they've dumped bags of ice into here. It's already melted. It's already liquefied. They're going to run this through the entire system to cool down the motor. But, you know, some people think it's kind of odd when you see bags of ice coming out here in the garage area. Well, this is the reason why.
Well, Mike, I tell you, that's a proper way to cool one of those engines down. It's a cool down unit, like you said. It recirculates the hot water out of the engine, puts cooler water back in the motor, so these guys can tape off the front of the car. There will be hardly any airflow going through that radiator when he makes that qualifying run. It needs to stay cool for a couple laps while he's doing that. So those are pretty cool machines. A lot of the teams have got them, and that's really, Jerry, the only way to do it.
That is a great way to do it. And here's one of the Todd Braun cars, Bernie Lamar. And this week, Braun Racing was in the news. It was announced that Richard Petty Motorsports will partner with Braun Racing for 5 races here in the Nationwide Series. It will be a Toyota, and that will be starting with New Hampshire. Elliott Sadler will drive on July 27th at New Hampshire. That race on ABC, of course, and Casey Kane then will compete in 4 other events, starting with the July 3rd race at Daytona on ESPN. Casey Kane will also be in the Toyota for Bristol, Atlanta, and Charlotte. So a 5-race deal, Richard Petty Motorsports and Todd Braun Racing.
Well, I haven't talked to King Richard about why he's done that yet. I would just assume he's done it to try to get his driver some more track time if it's available. So Elliott and Casey will be in there, like you said. Be interested to see what happens.
Could that be speculation that maybe the King, Richard Petty, may be making a change? Remember the Dodge Crosser situation, that's where they are right now with the Dodges. Could they be looking toward Toyota?
Well, they sure could. They're not getting any money from Dodge right now. We all know that. That's well documented. He says he hasn't been paid by that company yet. And he might be thinking, hey, why hang around? Let's try to do something else. Maybe he can go to Toyota. Who knows?
Final practice session here. Joey Logano atop the speed charts. And we talked about the 99 car that went out for that mock qualifying run a moment ago. Well, guess where he ended up, folks? Second quickest for Trevor Bayne. That is exactly where he qualified at Nashville last week and started the race beside Kyle Busch.
I'll tell you, he's looking good. He's just got to learn from what happened last week. You remember what happened to Trevor Bayne last week? The first lap, he got really loose coming off at turn 4 and lost about 10 positions. And that's, you got to believe that's etched in his head not to do that again.
And I am sure that the veteran crew chief is thinking all about what happened a week ago. Right, Andy?
Oh, that's right, Doc. I'm down here with Jerry Baxter. They're finishing up their practice session here. And, Jerry, you know, you've had a couple practices with your young driver. You made a qualifying run, made a whole list of changes here. How did it work out? Did you calculate your balance and everything right for that qualifying run?
Yeah, you know, he's so new at this, and it's the biggest track he's ever ran on, so I tried to be conservative on his run, and as it turned out, it was a little bit tight, so I'm sure he'll run a little bit better tomorrow. You know, even though that was a good lap, I'm proud of him. Everything we did in the second practice seemed to be a positive. You know, that don't happen very often, but we'll take it.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering why you quit so soon. Everything you were doing was working, so you could have kept him out there. But what kind of changes, will you make any changes to this car before tomorrow and getting ready for qualifying and for the race?
Well, qualifying, I just got to go off the track temperature. You know, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a lot hotter. It was 86 just now on track temp, and I'm sure it'll be a lot hotter. So we'll have to decide what to do there. And then for the race, we just got to go through everything we did today and make a plan.
Okay, Jerry, thanks for talking to us and letting us hang out in your garage area. And Doc, these guys are pretty happy down here.
As well they should be. They have a talented driver. Of course, Trevor Bayne, the second of 8 races he will be driving for Michael Waltrip Motorsports. Michael splitting that car with Scott Speed. And remember that last time this car raced on a 1.5-mile racetrack, Scott Speed set it on the pole at Las Vegas.
He did do that. Take a look at this one car of Mike Bliss. It looks like the front end's completely taped off in that car right now. We got 15 minutes left in practice, and I got to believe there's going to be a pile of, oh, it got loose right there. Got really loose. That kind of blew his qualifying run. It looks like he's going to come in and try to tighten that car up and do something different.
All that tape on the nose have an impact on that.
The front end just takes off.
And then thought I was wrecked.
The front end took off. He thought he almost wrecked. You can see, folks, the front end is taped completely off, and that made the car react in the wrong way. He didn't compensate for that tape enough. Like I was about to say, we got about 15 minutes left. You're going to see these cars pouring out of the racetrack now, all bonsai, I call it. That's a qualifying attempt. See a lot of them. Let's take a look at this replay once and watch his arms. Whoa! You can actually hear the tires squealing in there.
That's got to make you have a few hiccups in the old ticker there when that one starts to skate toward the wall at 140 miles an hour. Mike Bliss, a former winner at this racetrack in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, trying to get a win here in the Nationwide car. Minutes ticking away here. Back with the final minutes of practice in just a moment. In the bluegrass state of Kentucky, what about some thoroughbreds going for their very first NASCAR Nationwide Series win? It's happened 3 years in a row here at Kentucky Speedway. We'll invite you to join our coverage Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, beginning with NASCAR Countdown, and see who can be the next maybe to break into the win column here in the Nationwide Series. Joey Logano atop the speed charts in the first practice session and as well in the final practice session. He won it here last year, the anniversary of his very first win, becoming the youngest driver in the NASCAR Nationwide Series history. 18 years, 21 days. Wow. And look at that. 5 of the top 10 in this final practice have never won a Nationwide Series race, so we could see another breakthrough here on Saturday night.
Well, I mean, it adds up that it's going to happen. It seems like it happens every time at this particular racetrack. But if they're going to do that, they're going to have to outrun this guy right here, Joey Logano. He's fastest right now. He's been fastest his whole session, fastest the first session. He's just flat flying out in that racetrack. I mean, he's about 0.3 of a second faster than the rest of those guys right now.
You know, interesting part, though, the cars that have been fast over the years, you know, have not been the ones that have won the race. The 5 different years, the drivers who led the most laps didn't win this race. It was somebody else that won the race.
Well, I can tell you, I guarantee you the competition's hoping that's what happens because, you know, I'm looking at another thing, Jerry. I'm looking at his car. He's not blocked off. There's a lot of tape not on that grill, so he's still in a race run. You can see the front of that car above the word Camry, that he is not in a qualifying mode, and he's still fastest. So it's been interesting to see what happens when he really gets after it.
And we will be riding with Joey Logano Saturday night. He will be our in-race reporter. You'll be able to talk to him, Rusty, during the pre-race. And if you'd like to pose a question for Joey Logano to answer, you can go on to ESPN.com, keyword Ask the Driver, and maybe have your question answered by Joey Logano. As we will talk to him, as well as his crew chief, Dave Rogers, throughout the night here at Kentucky Speedway. He sits atop the speed charts. Can someone knock him off? We'll find out here in the final minutes of practice. Stay or not? Trouble on the racetrack. We were going to go to quick commercial, but now we have an incident involving Brian Keselowski, the younger brother of Brad. And he has hit the wall with, looks like, all 4 corners of his Dodge.
He's hit the wall really hard. You see he's moving around. Looks like he's okay inside the car. He's dropped the window net, and that's one of the first indications that the driver's fine. Let's take a look. Looks like he just got loose getting into turn 3 and spun the thing out right in the wall. I mean, I didn't see anything before that. Car just flat. Looks like the back of the car come off from underneath him, guys.
And Brian able to slide out of the car. Good news that he's able to walk away with but unfortunately with a very heavily damaged Dodge Charger there. Of course, you see on the hood, he's one of the drivers hoping to be able to get some of that bonus money from the Nationwide at Dash for Cash. He certainly will need it there to repair that car. So as we take a break, we'll show you this is thus far the only incident here in the final practice session or happy hour for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Cleanup ongoing here at Kentucky Speedway in Sparta, Kentucky at a turn 4 in the final minutes of the final practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide cars. Brian Keselowski's Dodge just suddenly snapped sideways up across the racetrack and into the outside safer barrier, the soft wall. And now they are trying to be able to get his car picked up and discuss if there is any time at all left for a few more laps of practice. Rusty, the big discussion coming into Kentucky was, would we see some of the young guns, another young gun breakthrough? And you talked earlier today in NASCAR Now and also on our show that two guys you thought might be there were Trevor Bayne and Kelly Byers, and they're both now in the top 10 of this final practice.
Yeah, right now they're looking good. Trevor Bayne, second in practice right now. You take a Kelly Byers, he's 10th. So they're both doing a great job with what they got right now. And I'm not going to say we predicted this, Jerry, but right now they're holding true pretty good. They're holding a pretty wheel, the way I call it.
How about Michael Annett? I mean, we haven't been able to say much about this young man who had an 11th place finish at Texas on the mile-and-a-half track, and he's in the top 5 of this session with a brand new crew chief.
Yeah, he's doing a good job also. One thing they got to be careful, though, this track is really cooling down, and tomorrow night's race starts at 8:30. It's about 8 o'clock right now, so the track's going to get cooler and cooler, and it's really going to change the characteristics of these cars, the way they drive tomorrow night's race.
Final practice session. Here's your top 10. Joey Logano atop the speed charts, and the 18-year-old Trevor Bayne. There's Michael Annett, the former hockey player. Carl Edwards a winner here. Leffler third in the points. Bliss in the car he won with at Charlotte. Bobby Hamilton Jr. Has been a previous winner here back in 2003. Kevin Hamlin, Brendan Gaughan, and Kelly Byers in the Kevin Harvick Chevrolet. Let's update Brian Keselowski's situation. Vince.
Well, talking with the crew members, and initially they didn't realize that it was Brian that was involved in the accident, so they were kind of hoping to see a replay of that and kind of get a video description, if you will, of the amount of damage that was done to that car. But this, as you see, the garage area here for the 26 is going to be empty because they do not have a backup for the 26. So that's certainly not good news. And talking with a couple of crew members, they said that Brian initially indicated he thought the right rear tire had gone down, but as you saw, significant damage to that race car and a bad break for Brian Keselowski and the 26 crew.
And it just snapped around. Thank you, Vince. As you mentioned, that team, it is the dad and mom are working with a team with Brian. They don't have a lot of money in an underfunded team, Rusty. That's a big, big blow for them.
I mean, you hate to see that, Jerry, for anybody, especially right there at the very end of practice when probably his last lap in a race, and Seattle was going to qualify, and the car got out from underneath him and he's crashing. No backup. Just a horrible feeling.
Brian Keselowski, the younger brother of Brad Keselowski, who's already a winner this year in the Cup Series, Sprint Cup, and as well as the Nationwide Series at Dover, Delaware. Joey Logano, who qualified 24th earlier in the day in Michigan in the Home Depot Toyota, his Cup car for Joe Gibbs Racing, jumped on an airplane to the helicopter, came here and promptly jumped out of the helicopter and has been at the top of the speed charts for both practice sessions.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like he's totally happy with the car yet. You see him, they're making some adjustments on the right rear corner. Looks like NASCAR is going to extend his practice just a little bit longer. We don't know how long yet. But boy, they're making major changes. It's got the indication it looked like he's getting ready for a qualifying run, though. Looks like maybe they've changed the tires. How we talked about what they're going to do for adjusting the car. They're cranking like crazy in those jack bolts.
Let's check in with Mike.
Well, guys, they really concentrated on the exit. That's what they've worked on in both practice. Got in the car pretty good, as we've alluded to several times. They had some problems bottoming out in turn 1, but otherwise they're pretty happy. One other side note, we talked about how much they struggled a year ago. I mentioned that to Joey's dad. I said, this practice has gone a lot better. He said, yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. It might be a jinx.
It was not a jinx a year ago when he gave his dad, Tom Logano, the best of ever Father's Day presents, his first career win in NASCAR's major leagues. We invite you to join us for NASCAR Nationwide's coverage tomorrow, qualifying 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and the NASCAR Series race coming up at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Saturday night. Joey Logano and Carl Edwards among 4 drivers who are pulling double duty coming down from Michigan to get in their cars and try to get them dialed in here at Kentucky Speedway. They'll be bobbing and weaving all night long on Saturday night. Now, coming up next, a little more bobbing and weaving and dodging. Heavyweight boxing, Mike Tyson and James Quick Tillis. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.